If I had to describe Kimi no Nawa, or Your Name, in one word, that word would be connection. The most obvious connection is the connection between Taki and Mitsuha. It is a connection that endures because they desire it, and their desire is not simple or banal. That connection between them, a connection that seems bizarre and wild and between two very different people, is one that they do not choose for themselves, but when it is a connection that is made, a connection that they have to live with, they grow to understand it. They grow to see and know and understand each other. To feel how, despite the apparent dissimilarities between them, they are very similar in many ways. There is this likeness between them. This unity that goes beyond these binaries that seem to separate them. But the film is ultimately about connection in a more profound and more thematic way. It is a film that brilliantly articulates the feeling, the experience of a sense of loneliness that doesn't come from anywhere definite. It's this malaise of living in a modern, uprooted world where everything feels disconnected from everything else, where life is merely material. It's merely the summation of the overt experiences and sensations that people have, wherein those latent connections, those hidden links between people, are lost. That sense of connection that the film is about, I felt it very strongly when I watched this film in a crowded, wonderful theater at Columbia University in February of 2020. It is a truly stirring experience to watch a movie with a group of people who have already seen it again and again. This was a screening put on by the school's anime club. Everyone in there knew the film and loved the film. They knew exactly when to laugh, exactly when to feel emotional. They knew every sorrow and lament, every joy and wonder. They knew the overall arc of the film, how it starts as a relatively ebullient, light, clever romantic comedy before evolving into something more dramatic and profound, and then becoming very transcendent in a very wild, weird, existential kind of way that should absolutely not work as well as it does. It was a truly communal experience. That is an overused phrase, but it applies here. The experience of being called out of your ordinary self, of transcending your ordinary being in the world, as this atomized, isolated, modern person, overstimulated with information and yet disconnected from a larger sense of community, a larger sense of belonging. That's the state of being in the modern world, and so to be able to transcend that, to feel that sense of not just being in a room with people, that's easy enough, but being in a room with people who understand what you are seeing and feel the same way about it, who care about it as much as you do, to truly have a common experience with people. A meaningful common experience. That is a very rare feeling nowadays. And it was certainly rare, even compared to what I thought, because that was the last film screening I went to before COVID hit. The last time I ever had the chance to go to the films and really experience being in that space and seeing something I cared so much about together with other people who cared so much about it. I thought constantly throughout the COVID chaos about that moment. It had a symbolic resonance for me during those long years that I think I have a hard time really conveying. The next time I went to a film, I believe, was late 2021, if I remember right, after the vaccinations, after all that. About 18 months, if not longer, after I'd seen that film in that wonderfully crowded theater. But I don't just want to talk about personal anecdotes. This is fundamentally a film about the transcendence of binaries. It is about connection that is not apparent, that is not obvious, that in a divided, materialist modern world that sees things for what they overtly are, we're lacking that. We're lacking that sense of being able to see what's not materially there, what we can't measure or quantify, but on a deeper spiritual, profound level is there. These binaries are only apparent. Past and present, city and country, male and female. All of these are binaries that we experience in the world, but ultimately they are merely provisional. They are merely what is apparent to us. On a deeper level, there is this sense of unity. There is this sense of togetherness and oneness. And that is what the film is about. It is the glimpsing of this sense of unity, and yet constantly being drawn back to the world where everything feels so divided, where we are overstimulated by the sensations that we now live in, and yet we feel so apart from each other. Because that deeper sense of unity is lost. Because it's latent, it's hidden, it's secretive. We need to really look for it. Whereas the divisions between people are very apparent. And not necessarily a bad thing. Like, difference can be good, but it's not good if it obscures this fundamental sense of unity. This is very important, the sense of unity, to many Eastern religions. Taoism, Buddhism, Hinduism, even in India. There is this sense of, this latent sense of connection that is often hidden or concealed. The state on which Taki and Mitsuha are able to connect is this state of dreams. The metaphor of dreams, the symbolism of dreams is used a lot. That is the world in which this connection, the sense of communion, is undertaken. There is a lot of resonance in that from a psychoanalytical perspective, especially if you go full Jung, where dreams are something mythical. They are something that taps into something very primordial in us that we have lost in the modern age. We have our individual lives which seem so separate from each other, but on a deeper level, on a collective unconscious level, these mythical motifs, images, feelings, sensations, they are still there, even if we don't understand them. But even if you do not want to go full Jung, the basic truth of the matter is that dreams are common property, to an extent. People's dreams fall into a lot of these recurring patterns and images. There are certain kinds of dreams that many different people from many different backgrounds tend to have. They are the space of unity that we can know and understand, even if we often do not have access to this complete oneness, this complete unity on a deep spiritual level. Taki and Mitsuha are pulled apart by wild and strange circumstances, like this meteor falling on her town and killing everyone there. That is something that in a different film could seem ridiculous and overdramatic, but it doesn't here. And the feeling of complete connection that Taki and Mitsuha experienced before then, of, on a literal level, body swapping, of being each other, which in a lesser film could be the source of puerile and childish jokes, and there are a few of those here, I'm not going to lie. But it's something much deeper than that. It's the experience of really getting to be someone who seems so different from you, and yet being so absolutely connected to them. There is no distance between them, because they literally are each other. They get to be each other. There is no separation. There is no distance between them. There is complete unity, complete oneness. And they grow to like that, and they grow to appreciate that. That, in a lesser film, again, could seem ridiculous, just as the severance between them could seem ridiculous, but it doesn't, because these tie into this deeper, more thematic series of corollaries. It is care for one another, not just in the common sense of the term, but in the Heideggerian sense, of being experientially drawn into a sense of feeling a connection with other people in order that you feel that your experience is tied to theirs, that your well-being, that your success or failure in the world is fundamentally tied to that of other people. It is the opposite of idle talk or mere petty curiosity. The latter categories are so common in a commodified, overstimulated world, but they are unsatisfying. They do not give the sense of real care, the sense of real connection and concern with others that is deeply felt, not just idealized, but deeply felt, and that this film is so very much about. We know these flashes of connection we get sometimes. Joyce calls them epiphanies. Virginia Woolf calls them moments of being. You might have your own term for them. Different religions and belief systems have different ways of going about and thinking about these things, but they're there. These moments that we get sometimes when we suddenly feel this deep connection to all things. Things that most of the time we feel so distant from. To the distant past. To other people. People that we might not even feel like we know that well. This deep connection to this oneness of things. To this basic fundamental unity of humanity. Of how people live. Of how people feel. Of how people experience the world. There is this commonality that lurks beneath our individual lives, and occasionally we catch a glimpse of that. But most of the time we don't, and even when we do, it fades, it deteriorates. These moments of profound insight into each other, into human experience, the human condition, they're fleeting, because we're drawn back into the world of ordinary life. We're drawn back into the tedious routines of things, into going about our ordinary lives, and not always being that content, and not always being able to know why we don't feel content. First line of the film, I believe, is, "Sometimes I wake up crying without knowing why." And I think that's what the film is about, this sense of vague disconnection. You're yearning for this sense of unity, the sense of deep connection with the world outside yourself, emblematized in the most perfect way through a connection with another person, a person you deeply can love, even if they are so different from you. Apparently, seemingly. But often we're just wandering about in our lives, going through the motions, feeling a vague discontent. This is Taki's state of things at the end of the film before he finally sees Mitsuha again. He has all these great experiences, these very profound experiences, and yet they feel so distant from him. These moments of true meaning, of true connection, and yet they feel distant from him. The sense of deep commonality, the sense of deep connection, it's a dream. That doesn't mean it doesn't matter, or that it's not real, but it fades, it's transient, and we're drawn back to our ordinary routines of things in which we do feel so alienated. In which there is this sense of severance between us and the world around us. There is this kind of lack of a common experience, again, especially in the modern world. So, those moments of connection, those great moments of being that Wolf talks about, they're hard to come by, but they're worth fighting for. I think if this film has enduring power, and I believe it does, I believe it's as popular and as beloved as it was when it came out, and it will only continue to grow and renown. It's because of a lot of things. It's because the characters are so well written. It's a beautiful love story. The writing is just immaculate in many places. But it's also because it experiences on a deep level, calls us into experience on a deep level, this sense of profound disaffection and malaise. That's not bad, it's just kind of mediocre and different drifting that we feel often in the modern world, and this sense of deep oneness, the deep connection that we so yearn for. So anyway, thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can. You want to see more videos like this before anyone else. Keep watching Your Name. It's a great film. There's so much more I could say about it. Adios, comrades.